Hey folks, it's Ardwulf. It's ironic that today I will be bringing you an unboxing of something that I first owned years ago, and now it is going to be getting hard to get because it is on the low stock list at Compass Games. This is Balance of Powers. This is a World War I game, strategic level World War I game by designer John Gorkowski. Now, I have played Balance of Powers, and it was a while ago, so I don't know that I'm going to be able to necessarily give you any incredibly cogent additional detail on Balance of Powers, but I did like it, and I regretted getting rid of it. So this is another one of those reacquisitions. And as I mentioned, it's on the low stock list, so by the time you watch this video, there's a good chance it will be out of stock. But I think it is a worthwhile game. There are a lot of games on World War I at roughly this scale, and very few of them boast all the features that Balance of Powers does, and I'll get to show you a little bit of that. So, first of all, we have a standard Compass Games. This game is several years old now. When was this released? 2014. So, we have three very standard chess six-sided dice. We have a rule book. Now, this is not, I will warn you, this is not the easiest rule book to deal with. However, it is pretty far from the worst rule book that I've ever seen, and I think you can definitely figure out how to play using this book. It is rules and scenarios all in one book, which is why it is 64 pages. There's a bunch of interesting things here. So let's take a quick look. As you can see here, it's a 3-map game. It's got a very sort of clean art style, which I actually like, but there are a couple of issues with it too that I will point out as we get to that. Full color rulebook, matte finish, half-inch counters. We'll look at the counters separately at some point. There is a fairly robust naval system in this game. It's more naval than you normally get in a World War I game. And we'll see a little bit of this. We actually have some treatment of the parts of World War I that didn't happen in Europe, which I also like. And you can see here, we'll take a look at the maps when we get to the maps. But another interesting thing here is that there's a relatively sophisticated July crisis mechanism that you actually go through and kind of determine what all of the firing pins that lead to World War I, which ones happen, which ones don't. So this allows you to really mix up the beginning of the game, the launch of World War I, in a novel way, and adds tremendously to replayability. It's a very nice feature that I really did like. All right, so a lot of stuff. Large and handsome game. We have 3 and an oddball counter sheet. I don't remember that. I don't remember the oddball counter sheet. Anyway, and you can see that the counters, these counters are several years old now, so they are a bit puckered. That's a who cares thing. They're the standard counter thickness for Compass counters in this era, and I'm completely fine with it. Like I said, we played this and we had no issues. They are 9/16 inch counters. If I said they were half-inch counters, which was my recollection, but they are 9/16 inch counters. And I think you can get this all in the box too, with say 2 counter trays. So here we can see we have the Germans. The British, I think those are British. Those are British. You can tell from the helmets. A lot of the units have the helmets are the symbols, right? And I actually kind of like that. Here are the Russians. I think those are the Russians, right? Those are the Russians. Here we have our Americans, our French. The French are one of the problems. You can see that the French color is fairly dark here. It's fairly dark blue. There's a colored stripe on the back of the counters. This is equally true of the Turks, I think, where the colored stripe is not as obvious as it could be. It's pretty obvious to see on the back of the counters. This is a reduced strength side. It's a little difficult to make out in a stack on the French pieces specifically is where I remembered that. It's actually not as bad as I remembered, though, I gotta say. You can see that there's quite a few ships, too. And then these would be the Italians. Those are really hard to see. Those reduced strength stripes are really hard to see. And there's a variety of markers here for ruins, for rail, for control of various things. Trench battle. We get some player aids. Standard player aid. This includes a TEC, some various rules, resource points. There's another one that has optional neutral random entry. AF core. I forget what that means. Arrival location. That's the Africa chart, actually, where these show up when they enter play. Here's the graphic TEC. Here's another one of those same cards. And then here is the general record track. This is just a card that goes on everything. You use this as a turn track, too, as far as I can tell. I don't think there's a separate turn track, unless that's the turn track. No, there's no... I think you use this as the turn track. Actually, yeah. Monthly turns, by the way. All right. So this C chart lets you kind of navigate all over the... not quite all over the globe, but all the way out as far as Japan. German Tsingtao, so you can actually do the kind of forays that historically occurred into the Pacific as part of World War I, and you can fight out the action in colonial Africa. There are African units, and you can have, here's German East Africa, for example, and you can fight those situations out on this map. There's no standalone scenarios to do that, which is maybe slightly disappointing, but not really a big deal. One of the maps, I have a different eye for this than I did at the time when I got this last time. This is not a full-size map. This is the Ottoman Empire map, and as you might be able to see on the video, I'm not sure how well this will show up. It's really kind of hard to see the hex grid in here in this desert. Now, is anything going to be happening in this desert? Probably not. But it's even a little light here, and it's quite light here in Russia as well. And it's in Russia where a lot of fighting happens. I think that's the biggest deal. This area down here in the Near East, I think, is less problematic. Mark Mahaffey art on this, and I think it looks good. Some people complained that they didn't like the way it looked. I didn't have a problem with the way it looked. I like, and you can see the scale of this here, right? I mean, the hexes are a little bigger than you might otherwise get, but nice big map of Italy here, and the Balkans. I do think these maps. Here's our turn record track. Yeah, that's our turn record track. And here's Western Europe, which covers a big chunk of France. Here's your Western Front. Here's a 1916 front line. There's a 1916 scenario, as I recall. And of course, you actually have Britain on the map. Probably not going to invade, but you never know, I suppose. I think there's an option where the Germans can invade the Netherlands. I might be misremembering that because I've seen a lot of these games at this point. Of all like the multi-map World War I games that I've looked at, which includes this, and it includes Empires and Alliances, also from Compass, and also includes Storm of Steel from Decision. This is the only one of those games that I've played, and I do have a fairly high opinion of it. Empires and Alliances looks like a new take on Guns of August. Storm of Steel is kind of its own thing, but it's got a lot of issues, as I think anybody who's looked at the second edition rules can attest. Balance of Powers, however, is quite a solid game, and I am glad to return it to my library after an absence prompted by some kind of previous stupidity. So here we are with Balance of Powers back. Get it while you can. I think it's a pretty good game. I think it's a pretty solid game. I think it's worth fighting through the moderately difficult rulebook to play it. I think it's got a lot of interesting things going on. Low stock over at Compass. So this one does get my recommendation. Not a perfect game, but I think it's got a lot of good things to say. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video. I hope that you will give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, and please help support Ardwulf's Lair by checking out the links in the video description to the Patreon, the merch store, and the Ko-Fi. Until next time, thanks again for watching, and happy wargaming.